Okay guys, so welcome to the next video in our step to master Node.js. So in this video we're going to learn all about Node Package Manager and how you can actually install one of the many available third-party packages out there. Now this video is quite long, and the reason behind it is I always want to make sure to deliver explanation about something. So I could have just easily show you 5 commands and that would be it. However, if this is your first time learning about Node.js, I really wanted to guide you through a couple of examples, and we're going to learn pretty much everything there is to know about NPM in my opinion. Just to mention something, we're going to learn what NPM is, what NPM Registry is, we're going to take a look at their site, we're going to briefly look how every package on npmjs.com is structured, what makes a certain package, how you can actually install a package, the versioning behind any packages. Now there is something called Semantic versioning that you will learn about. You'll see how you can actually figure out the GitHub repository for any given package, how you can install regular, development and global dependencies, and the difference between those. I'm going to show you next how you can install packages on your development machine versus on production machine. We're going to learn how you can actually uninstall any package, how you can upgrade any package, and I'm probably missing something because there is a lot of ground that we cover in this video. So if you're curious about Node Package Manager, how it works, how you can use it, I hope that you will enjoy this video and learn a lot about it. Okay, so to begin, this is NPM site, so it is npmjs.com, and over here you can learn more about NPM, and if you keep on scrolling you'll see a couple of interesting things. For example, there are 800,000 of NPM packages, and if you keep on scrolling you'll see some packages that people install a lot, and we will talk more about those. So the main idea really is that NPM is both a CLI tool, but it is also a storage or a registry where all of these packages live. Okay, so something that you should know, for example, if you open any of these packages, I'll open Express in the new tab, this is a kind of a structure that you can assume every package will contain. So on this page for this package in particular, you'll see the name, the logo if they have, maybe some sample code. Over here you'll see a quick install command and some statistics amount of weekly downloads, the version, open issues, pull requests, their own homepage in case they have it. The general rule is the more popular the package is, the more likely that it has its own website, but don't expect every package to have a separate homepage because usually the documentation is either stored in here or you can go to their GitHub page and you'll be able to see it over here. Now sometimes the documentation is simply copy pasted, so you'll see the same text on this page as well as on their GitHub. Sometimes that's not the case, so it's best to check both links. You'll see the last update more or less and the collaborators for this package in particular, and then of course you can, like I said, familiarize yourself more with this package over here. Something else is this is a package. Now another way to say a package is to say a dependency, so don't get confused with those terms. You can call it a package, you can call it a dependency, maybe someone calls it extension or plugin, I'm not sure, but they all pretty much mean this is closed unit of code that you can use and reuse in your projects and that someone else has written it. Now as you can see over here, this Express package actually depends on 30 other packages or 30 other dependencies, so that is something that you'll see pretty frequently because no one really wants to reinvent a wheel, so they are reusing others' efforts, and all of these packages help Express be what it is. Now you can also see dependents. These are the packages that are actually using Express for themselves, and this is the different versions that this package had throughout the history. Okay, so now with this said, we can actually start installing some packages and see how we can bring them into our own projects. Okay, so I have already created an npm-video empty folder. Now, whenever you want to use some package, you need to lay like a foundation or something. Now, that foundation in Node.js world is a file that is called package.json, so like this. Now there are a couple of ways for you to create this file. I mean, you can like create it manually and fill all the properties yourself. However, that's like not the best approach because it is slow and it is error prone. So thankfully we have a special command using npm to do that for us. Now npm ships with Node.js, so if you have installed Node.js, you should be good to go. If you want to check that, you can use node -- version to get back Node's version, and you can use the same thing to see what npm version you've got installed. So as long as those two commands yield back the version's numbers, you're good to go. If not, you just need to like Google Node.js and simply download it and then continue in this video. So now we're going to tackle that npm init command, which pretty much like initializes and creates that file for us. Okay, so how this is going to work is you're going to be like guided through a couple of steps, and on this each step you need to like enter your answer over here. So for example, first question is like our package name. Now don't be confused, even though it says package over here, you can pretty much look at this like what is the name of our project over here. So for now, this npm-video seems fine. So if you want to use this default value, you just hit enter. Okay, so now moving forward, like what shall be the version of our project at the start? Now this is totally like subjective number, you can use whatever. So for example, maybe we want to start with like 001, or maybe we want to start at like version 1. It really isn't important. The description, you really don't need to type it out. If you want, you can definitely do that. So maybe like a sample description. Now the entry point is like the main file in your project that you'll actually use when you want to like run your application. So we can call it whatever we want. The index.js sounds fine, so I will just hit enter and use that default value. Test command, we're going to skip this. Git repository, we aren't using Git for this project, so we're going to skip that as well. Keywords, now you don't really need keywords. You would use keywords if, for example, you were building a package that you yourself want to add onto npm.js, so to the npm registry. Therefore, the users would be able to find your package based on those keywords, but this is just like we're learning right now, so we don't want that. Author again isn't important. I will put code worker, however, and license. Well, again, like if you want to take this to the next step and maybe publish this, you can read about different licenses and choose one that makes sense for you. Because this is a tutorial project, we really don't care. And now this npm tool will actually show you what this package.json will look like, and you have this ability to like review it at this point, and if everything seems fine, you can hit enter. Okay, so now we've got this file over here, and as you can tell, it consists of all the properties that you've seen just now in the terminal window. Okay, so now that we have this installed, we can start installing other packages to our project. Next, let's create this entry file. So I'm going to create a new file. I'm just going to call it index.js, and actually let me zoom in a bit, maybe like this, and I'll actually zoom the user interface as well. So hopefully, if you're watching this on mobile, this will make more sense. So now in this index.js file, we definitely want to use some third-party package. Now the only question really is like which one. So maybe if I go back over here, these are like the most popular packages, and like I'm looking for something that is really like generic, and I'm not seeing them over here, but I do know one that we can use, and that one is called a Lodash. So Lodash has some neat functions that you can use like on strings, on arrays, on objects, and etc. So we're going to use this one, and then we're going to go to their documentation and figure out some small example that we can replicate to our project. So as you can tell over here, to install this package, you use this command npm I, the name of the package. So we're going to do that. Make sure that you are in the current directory of your project, so you can do this, and if that seems good, you can just go npm I and then the package name Lodash. Now this I stands for install, and you can still write it out like install, but I mean like I is much nicer to type out and it's faster, so you just do this. and then npm CLI tool actually goes to their registry, like fetches all the files that are necessary and installs them into this directory over here. So now if I navigate back, you see a couple of different folders and files have appeared. So we have this package.json as we had previously. However, now we have this package-lock.json as well as this node_modules folder. And if you even open this package.json file, you see that now we have this newly added property which is called dependencies, and that is like an object that contains all the currently installed packages. So as you can see, Lodash is the thing that we just installed, and over here on the right is the exact version that we have got installed right now. The package-lock is something that you really don't want to touch. It is just some file that npm uses like internally to lock in down the specific versions and make sure that there are no like discrepancies between you installing this same project in multiple locations and stuff like that. So you just don't worry about it at all. But in this node_modules folder, you actually have this thing installed. So the node_modules actually houses all of the packages or all of the dependencies source code, and like if you expand this Lodash folder, you see all the like building blocks behind this dependency over here. And like the funny thing is, like not funny but more like interesting thing is, this package also contains package.json file. And I actually need to zoom out a bit, but if you take a look over here, they have some of the same properties we had. For example, author over here, they have the description, they also had a lot of additional ones, but for example, you see that they definitely used the keywords property and license and like the main file, the entry file, the version, and the version should match. So for example, the version is 4.17.11. And if I go back to our package.json, you see that the version is 4.17.11. Now don't worry about this caret symbol over here, we are going to talk about it more in a bit. So now that we have Lodash, we can actually use it over here. Now when you want to use a package that you just installed using npm, if you watch my previous videos, the idea is pretty much the same. So you type out some variable over here, and then you use the require keyword, and then you pass in the package name. Now as you can tell, VS Code is smart enough to let me know that the only package that we currently have is the Lodash, so I can click on that. And you also notice that we don't have to do any like relative paths and stuff like that. So you use the relative paths only when you build a package yourself, but when you install some third-party ones, you just give it a name, given that you have already installed it. Okay, now rule of thumb really is whenever you use this specific package is to call this variable underscore. Now I think that this rule of thumb pretty much goes because you're going to use it frequently, and it's much faster to just like type underscore and then some like method name, as opposed to like Lodash.method name. So like don't get confused by that, it is there simply to like save you some time. Okay, so now like how can we actually use this package? Well, we need to look at their documentation. So we're going to search for that. Now as you can see over here, it is not exactly that helpful, so we're going to check their GitHub page. And on their GitHub page, if we scroll down, you'll see the link to documentation over here. So let's open that. And then as you can tell, we have different methods for working on different data types. So for the arrays, collections, dates, functions, math, numbers, etc. So I mean, this really isn't a lesson in Lodash, so we're going to pretty much like just pick the first one that shows over here. So to the array section, we have this chunk method, and it creates an array of elements split into groups, length of size. If array can't be split evenly, the final chunk will be the remaining elements. Okay, and then you also have the super helpful examples over here. So we pass in an array of elements and we specify the size of those groups. And then this chunk will actually turn this single array into an array of arrays, where the inner array contain exactly this number of elements. And as you can see, it split this 4 elements array into 2 arrays of 2 elements each. So let's do something like that. So I'm going to now use this. So let's say underscore.chunk, and then we need to pass in some array. So let's say maybe like 3, 4, and then the second argument is the group size, so we can use 2 as they have. Now we can save this into maybe chunked array or something, and then we can console.log out the contents of our chunked array. Okay, and now I can open my terminal. I can just type node and then the file name, so node index.js, and you see that that is exactly what we have over here. So this is how you can actually install a package and use it, and hopefully it makes sense. Now let's say that you're tired of this Lodash and you don't want to see it any longer, so you want to get rid of it. Now there are a couple of ways you can do that. Of course you can just get rid of all of this code over here, but the package is still installed to your project over here, and that's not really the ideal solution. So what you can do is you can simply come here and delete this line altogether like this. Now if you go on and save this file, of course the package is still in this node_module. I wouldn't really suggest you that you go on and delete it manually, but instead what you can do is just run the npm install command. Now the npm install command is something that you'll use quite frequently. It isn't installing any package in particular, but this npm install command goes to this package.json file, looks at these dependencies properties, and install everything that is in here. Now because this is empty object, it will actually get rid of our Lodash over here. So if I do this and I actually refresh this, you see that the entire node_module went away. Okay, so that is one way. Now that isn't the best way, but I'm guilty of using it on so many different occasions. The more proper way, however, is the one that I'm going to show you now. Okay, so now we're back to where we have been previously. So we got this Lodash over here, the node_modules reappeared, and now we want to uninstall it in a more proper way, where there is this simple command that you can use. It is npm uninstall the name of the package, like this. And as you can see, the end result is pretty much the same, however it is more by the books. Now you have seen npm uninstall. Well, the shorthand way of using this is just un, like this, and I have also run npm install. You can just do this one as well. So those are just two different ways to do the same things. Okay, so next, there are 3 types of packages out there. So let me just do something like this. So you have just seen the installation of so-called normal or regular packages or dependencies. Now there is also another type which is called development packages or dependencies, and there is also a third type which is called a global. Now what is the difference? Well, the normal package you're going to use throughout your code, actively. Okay, your code will actually use the functionality that these packages expose to you, and they will be really necessary in order for your code to work properly. The development packages are something that you're going to use entirely on the development machine. So let's say you're building something. Well, the development packages are those packages that can aid you during the development process, but when the time comes for you to actually deploy the application on some server and let it run, you don't want these development packages because they have no purpose there. Okay, and the global packages are CLI tools, command line interface tools. For example, the NPM that you have seen throughout this video is an example of. Now, when you browse through NPM site over here, you don't really have categories. You wouldn't see, okay, here are the normal dependencies, here are the regular or development or global, but depending on what some dependency does, it will make sense to be either one of those 3 types. So for example, we have seen this Lodash. Lodash, I would say, would go to this normal dependency because it actually affects our code. The development package is something like grunt or this one or this one. So for example, this is the JavaScript task runner. This is the streaming build system. So let's say that you're working on some site. At the end, you just want to have maybe 2 files. All of your JavaScript code should be put in single file. Well, during the development development, you might want to use like several folders filled with several different files, but at the end of the day, you want to produce that minified JavaScript file. And that's where packages like this come into play. You would, for example, use this package to help you with that minification process, and you would actually just run that on like the development machine, and when it comes to the production, you would just like ship those two files or something like that. So hopefully that sheds some light on the difference between those. Another great example is a package that is called Nodemon. Now Nodemon is like a simple package that like auto restarts your project whenever you make some changes. So what we've done previously is we actually like run our code over here, and okay, I commented out all the code, but for example, let me put something over here like hi world. For example, like we run this file over here, we see the output, and then the process terminated. So now like if I went over here and I say like hey, you see that we have to actually like restart it manually. And Nodemon is one dependency that helps with that, and it is like prime target for development package because this is super useful while you're building something. But once you actually install your project on like production server, you don't want to use Nodemon, you want to use more proper ways to making sure that your server is always up and running. So now we'll actually install the Nodemon as a development package. So to do that, the process is quite similar. You again type npm, you again type I, followed by a package name, so Nodemon, but this time you make sure to add -- save -dev like this. Okay, so now this package isn't something that you'll like require it over here, like say Nodemon, because you actually use this to run your application. So for example, Nodemon you would use inside of your scripts, and that is like a great way for me to introduce you to scripts. So what are scripts? Well, so far we have run our application by typing node space the file name. Well, we can actually define script for that. We can say something like start my project, and then we can type the command over here. So the command could be, for example, node and then index.js like we had over here. And right now, because I've saved the package.json file, I can actually type npm run and then over here the script name. So our script name is start my project. So if I type start my project, you'll see that all it did for us is executed this command. So this is more or less like alias for this command over here. Now there are pretty much like two special commands that I'm aware of. One is test and the other is start. Now there is really nothing special about those except their names. So if I call my script over here just start, well, that means that I can actually run it without having to type this run word in between. So I can just type like npm start, and it will do the same thing. So just like remember, if you're writing your own scripts, if they're called start or test, you don't need to use this run word in the middle. However, if you put some custom name like start my project or something like that, you do need this run in between those. So now that we have this, let's actually use Nodemon. So because Nodemon is installed as a dev dependency, as you can see here, it is like a special different section. We can use it over here. So we can type Nodemon space index.js, and if I do that and I start this again with npm start, you'll see that actually this is output from Nodemon, and that we see our output from the actual console.log statement over here. So now one interesting thing is if I put this always on top and I come back to this file and maybe I change a string over here, let's see if this is working. And of course I need to change my quotes or either escape this one. And I save this, so this hasn't been saved yet. If I save this, you see that it automatically restarts it. Okay, the thing is, even though it is a development dependency, we still have it installed over here, and as you can see, we no longer have like just Nodemon, but in fact we have every single dependency that Nodemon actually depends on. So that is why we have all of this mess over here, but we can definitely find Nodemon over here. Okay, so now let's say that we have worked on this project over here and you're happy with it, and maybe you want to like share it with a friend or put it on your website or something like that. Well, what are your options? Well, you can definitely like open this in Explorer, and maybe like zip everything like this, okay, and I mean that can work. However, this node_modules folder will grow so fast, so quickly once you start adding in different packages that you really shouldn't do that. Instead, what you should do is actually delete this node_modules, so delete it entirely, and you don't have to worry about that because you have all of your dependencies listed over here. And then you can like put this on your GitHub or maybe like archive it and send it to someone. And then let's pretend that I just loaded your code over here and like want to use it. Well, right now if I type npm start, this won't work because it says nodemon is not recognized, and that is because we're using nodemon over here in our start command, but we don't even have node_modules. So then what you usually do once you load someone else's code is you run the npm install command that you have seen previously, and it will pretty much like scan through these and give you back the node_modules folder, and then I can like use your project and it will work and everything will be nice. So just like remember that. Now it's really important like where you want to run this. As I've told you, dev dependencies, you don't want to actually have them on production machine, but like when you run npm install, like we did over here, it definitely installed nodemon and it is over here. So in case like your project is done and you want to put it on some production server and you want to ignore all the dev dependencies, there is one change that you need to make. So let me delete this and pretend that you maybe just push this code onto a server. Well, on the server you no longer want to run this command, but you want to pass this production flag, so -- production. Now what will this do is it will do everything that npm install would do, however it will ignore all dev dependencies over here. So now as you can tell, we no longer even have node_modules folder because we have no dependencies like regular dependencies, and of course these one were omitted. Okay, so we have now seen how we can use this nodemon as a development dependency, and by doing so the nodemon is really only available to us inside of this project. Now we're going to see the difference between global dependencies and other dependencies. So for example, this nodemon, while it was readily available in this start command for example, and we could have also like required it, although that wouldn't make too much sense for nodemon specifically, we cannot do something like okay, like nodemon index.js over here, because we will see that nodemon like is not recognized. Like this terminal window has no idea what this nodemon is all about. So to fix that, we can install it as a global dependency, and how you can do that is quite similar. So you again do npm I, but this time you specify -g for like global dependency, and then you put in the name, so nodemon. Okay, and now that it is done, we can type nodemon index.js, and as you can see we can use nodemon as we were using a node from this terminal. That is really the only difference between global dependencies and other dependencies. So if you see some package that maybe in the description they say that this makes a great CLI tool or something, you should probably install it as a global dependency if you want to use that. Okay, so now we totally went through all of these. We understand the difference between these three categories of dependencies. We have learned how you can uninstall and install dependency, and also that npm uninstall command works for all of these. Next, we're going to look at this versioning, which is called semantic versioning, and understand what each one of these numbers really mean inside of here. Okay, so let's install a Lodash once more, and then we'll take a look at that versioning. So npm I Lodash, okay, and then as soon as this is done, I'm going to refresh the package.json file. Okay, so as we can see, every dependency really has these three components to it, and this way of representing a version is something that is called a semantic versioning. Okay, so as I said, we have these three components. Now how they work is the following. So this number on the right, the third one, is called the patch number, meaning right now we have Lodash of 4.17.0 4.11, as we can see over here. Well, if the Lodash team goes in and maybe like figures out there is some bug that they want to fix and they end up fixing it, they will release a new version of Lodash, but they will only increment this number because that bug was fixed and everything else is working as it should. So whenever the patch version increases, that means that there are no breaking changes and only some bug was fixed. Meaning if you were using the Lodash code, for example, or any other package for that matter, you aren't supposed to do any changes and everything should work as before, just some issue got fixed. Now this middle number is called a minor number, and that really means that Lodash went in and actually introduced a new feature. However, they introduced a new feature in a way where there are again no breaking changes, and as you can see they usually revert this third or patch number back to 0 because like maybe they haven't encountered any of the bugs so far, and as they continue working on their project this number will keep on increasing while this one will stay the same until they introduce yet another feature to it. So increment of this minor number again means that you really aren't supposed to make any changes and that everything should work as is. Now this first number is called a major number, and that pretty much means some new breaking changes. So maybe Lodash went in and maybe they totally overhauled Lodash, maybe they added something big to it, and in turn there were some breaking changes, so they had to like update their documentation page, some function names might have changed, etc. That's this major number over here, and usually when the new release comes with this major version, and the minor and the patch versions are set to zeros because during the lifetime of this fifth major release these two will be incremented over time. Okay, so now with that said, hopefully when you see numbers like these you now understand. However, also note that it is up to the package author to actually respect this rule. So for example, you can create a package and you can give it some version like this. In fact, we have over here, and like you don't really need to care about it. You should, but it is definitely up to you. So general like rule of thumb is if the package is really like popular and used a lot, you can probably rely on the fact that the package author is probably worrying about these things and taking these into consideration. However, if you're using some small package, it really is unknown, totally depending on the author. Now you see this caret symbol over here. So this symbol over here is called caret. All this means is that we're locking in this major version of 4. So whenever your package.json file has caret and then like some numbers after it, it means we're only interested in most up-to-date version that begins with, in this example, 4. Okay, and over here it means that we want nodemon whose major version is 1 and we don't care about the other ones. Like give us like the latest, but keep in mind that we want to make sure that these two numbers are the same. And that is really good if you push this to like Git repository or share it with someone, because later if someone else installs your code and do the npm install, you are sure that that person won't like run into trouble needing to make some changes, because this means that no breaking changes happened. Another way to specify this caret is to simply type something like 4.x.x. So we only care about this number and not about the rest. So I could have replaced this like that. Okay, and another thing that you can encounter is so-called tilde. Now tilde means simply that we want to lock in down both the major and the minor version. So we want to make sure that whenever someone uses our package and like does the npm install, that we want to keep these two numbers the same, but this one could be whatever, maybe like 99. Okay, and another way to specify tilde is to type 4.17.x. So we're like making these two numbers a constant, and this one can change over here. Okay, now a few useful commands. So you can type npm outdated to check if some of your packages are outdated. Okay, so right now they're all up to date. So let me actually specify that we want a tilde. Okay, we want 4.12. I'll just put 0 over here, and I'm going to remove node_modules. Okay, and then I'm going to run npm install. So we want to install this older version of Lodash. Okay, so now if I type npm outdated, you'll see that the current version is 4.12.0, the wanted version is 4.12.0, and the latest is 4.17.11. Okay, now to make more sense of this, let's actually check what are all the versions of Lodash in existence. So to do that, you can type npm view, the name of the package, Lodash, and then versions, like this. Okay, so this is like an array that contains all of the published Lodash versions, and if we scroll to 4.12, you can see that in this example over here there is really like just one release. So that wasn't like the perfect example. We want something with like multiple sub-releases. So let's do this one. So actually let's use this one, because as you can tell it has multiple patch releases. So I'm going to simply go 4.16.0. I'm going to yet again remove this folder. I'm going to save this package.json, and then I'm going to rerun the npm install command. Okay, so npm install. Okay, so now if I type npm outdated, okay, you see what is going to happen. Well, right now we actually got installed the latest release that is kept with 4.16, meaning we didn't get 4.16.0, but we actually got 4.16.6, because this tilde meant give us everything that is latest within these two numbers. And because of that, these two numbers match. However, as you can see, the latest is definitely 4.17.11. However, we don't want that based on this specification over here. Now, if you want to install like specific version of something, you can totally omit this tilde or caret symbol altogether and just put in the specific number. And if we do that again, I'm going to delete this. We probably don't need to delete the node_module folder, but I just have that silly habit. So now if I type npm I again, this time we should for real get this exact version installed. Okay, so let's check that. So I'm going to go npm outdated, and as you can see, now we got this one installed, but the wanted is also .0 because we got rid of that tilde. So now we can put the tilde in, which means give me like the latest over here. So I'm going to save this file, open terminal once again, and run npm outdated. Okay, so now you can see that like Lodash is red, meaning that like our current version is smaller than our wanted version. And if you want to make this switch, you can just type npm update, which will take the current version and like fetch the wanted version over here. So if I do this, okay, and I run the npm outdated again, you'll see that the current version is 4.16.6. And as you can see, package.json automatically changed our tilde to this caret symbol, which means we just want to lock in this first number. So now because of that, it also shows us that we want actually this 4.17.11, because that totally fits into this mold. So we can do npm update one more time, and we should have like the latest version of Lodash. And if I just like run this command again, we shouldn't even see the Lodash anymore because it is the latest. Okay, so that's it for this video. We went through quite a couple of npm commands. To be honest with you, like you don't need to really keep them all inside of your head. You just need something to get started, maybe like these two. And then like as you go on and as you progress with learning more about Node.js and working on different projects, you can reference other ones and start using more and more of them. So just a quick like summary, npm I and then the package name allows you to like install a regular package to your project. npm I-g allows you to install a global dependency, and this one where you add this --save-dev allows you to install dev dependency. Then you have this universal npm un or like uninstall command that allows you to uninstall any of the package that you have installed. You can also manually delete lines over here. Then we've got this super useful command npm view package name and then the versions, which allows you to maybe see like all of the versions in the package existence so far, if that's useful to you at any time. And then we also learned about these like versions, so-called semantic versioning. I would say like these four things go hand in hand. So this allows you to check versions. This is the version of the package you got installed, and then based on this like caret or like tilde or like these other patterns over here, And then with npm outdated, you can check whether there is some newer version that still makes sense given your specifications over here. And with npm update, you can actually like execute that switch over here. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, that you learned something. If you have any questions, concerns, or feedback, please leave that in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video where we will continue exploring Node.js.